Flashcards can be one of the most powerful study tools available to students, and yet so many students fall into what I like to call the flashcard trap, which is the belief that they are prepared for an exam because their flashcards told them they were, only to realize once they get there that they weren't prepared at all. So we are going to learn how to avoid this trap altogether. And here we have our cheat sheet on the flashcard trap, which you are always free to download below, and you're welcome to share it with any students, parents, and educators in your life so we can help our students maximize their flashcards. Now, on this specific cheat sheet, we have two columns. You'll notice we have a column for good strategies and better strategies. But where are the bad strategies that our students are already using? Well, I advocate that there are no bad study strategies. I'm never going to discourage a student from studying because it's certainly better than not studying at all. Instead, I like to see study strategies as ones that are less effective and more effective. And so we're going to learn how to dial up 4 of the strategies that I've seen thousands of students use in creating their flashcards and choose more effective ones instead. So the first sort of okay strategy that a lot of students use is that they tend to focus on very narrow concepts and ideas on their cards, and they really prioritize things like who and what and when and where. Now, what this leads to is sort of these isolated chunks of knowledge. And we see flashcards that have a simple term or a question on the front that leads to a very simple 2 or 3 word answer on the back. But the thing is, by the time students get to college, professors certainly are not interested in testing their ability to rote memorize a bunch of facts. Instead, they want students to understand how these things are working and how they're connected to each other. So then it only makes sense that their flashcard should emulate the way that they're going to be tested. And so instead, we want our flashcards to focus on bigger picture concepts and answer questions like why and how and which and what if. If a student can answer these types of questions around their concepts, then they're certainly prepared for any kinds of questions that a professor can throw at them. So exactly how do we learn to start creating these types of questions on our flashcards? Certainly we can look back at past exams to identify how does my teacher or professor typically test me so that I can start generating my own questions that feel like they would exist in that world. Do I have access to study guides? Can I go into my textbook and look at the comprehension or chapter review questions and start pulling some of those as well? So the more we can start focusing on big, overarching conceptual ideas, the stronger our understanding is going to be, and the who, what, when, where will just naturally be built in those things. The second strategy I wish students would use less of is what I like to call copy and paste to create their flashcards. If I had $1 for every time a student told me that they put on their favorite show, pulled out their books, their notes, and a stack of blank flashcards and just had a good old flashcard making session, then I would be a very wealthy person. But unfortunately, while that strategy feels good, it feels productive, it feels like we're studying, we're actually not doing a whole lot of thinking and learning. And so we want to start dialing up the creation of our flashcards from just copy and pasting in a bunch of words from other people, from things that we wrote down, from the teacher's slides, from the textbook, and instead to start personalizing that content. So what does it mean to personalize flashcards? Well, let's say you see a really dense passage in a textbook. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, but then suddenly the author includes a chart or a diagram, or your teacher showed a really great graphic or mind map that simplified and made things more understandable for you. Those are the kinds of things we want to translate onto our flashcards. The goal is that our flashcards start to function and visualize information for us in a way that our brain already understands them. Now, this also means we can't just copy and paste over information we don't understand. So many students create these very simple flashcards where there's a term on the front and some type of definition on the back. And when you ask them what the definition means, they have no idea, but they've memorized the definition itself. When that happens, we need to personalize our learning by going back to the book, to our notes, to the slides, to a video, to understand the content better, and then translate that onto our card in a way that makes sense for our brains. Now, I do want to just take a quick little segue here to talk a little bit about the rise of AI and creating digital flashcards, because this is taking copy and paste to a whole new level. There are plenty of digital flashcard software out there where you can just upload a copy of your teacher's slides or a picture of your textbook, and it will start translating all of those ideas into a stack of flashcards that you can then memorize. So not only are students being stripped of their ability to identify what looks important and then copy and paste it at a minimum, now they don't have to do anything whatsoever in creating these flashcards. Now, I'm all for leveraging AI and different types of technology to become faster, smarter, more efficient, and effective students and learners. But at this point, AI creating everything for a student is certainly doing more harm than good and stripping out all personalization altogether, which we want to be sure to push back on. The first two strategies were focused on creating better flashcards, and these last two strategies are going to be focused on how we can study better with those flashcards. And so the third thing that I'd like to highlight is that students have a tendency to flip over their flashcards way too soon. And by that, I mean they will see a flashcard that has a term or a definition on the front. They'll think about it for just a second, maybe two, before feeling very uncomfortable, because our brains don't like when they don't know what's happening at all times. And so they immediately flip it over because their brain knows the answer is sitting on the back. They read it and say, oh yeah, I know that. And in many cases, they'll put it in their I know this pile. So what's the problem with that? Well, yeah, they have recognized the correct answer. But just because they can recognize the correct answer sitting on a flashcard does not mean that they know or understand the correct answer. Now, this is a really dangerous trap because unless their entire exam is going to be multiple choice, they're going to have to formulate this answer completely from their own memory and not have outside cues to prompt them. So instead of students immediately checking their answers after every question, we want to prompt them to hold and to check their answers at the end of their retrieval session. So I encourage students to pick maybe a stack of 10, 15, 20 flashcards to work on at one time. And instead of flipping them over, they are going to go through each one, answering them, and then writing their answers down on paper, or typing their answers as they say them, or recording their answers into their voice memo app, or even into an AI software. And this will allow them to get through all of the questions first, and then they will go back after answering all of them to identify which ones did I get correct and which ones were incorrect. Yes, it takes a little bit more work, but it's going to help us actually understand what we know and what we don't know. Now, this strategy perfectly feeds into the fourth and final strategy we're going to talk about here, which is a tendency for students to oversimplify their rating system. They see every card as either right or wrong. Now, on the surface, this seems okay. We need to know which content we know and what content we don't know. But the trap here is that for many students, even if they don't answer a card 100% correctly, even if it's only 50% correct, they will tend to see that flashcard as correct and put it in their correct pile. Now, for a lot of students, that correct pile gets less attention, or once all of the cards have moved into the correct pile, they stop studying altogether. However, that right pile can be filled with cards that were only 50% of the way correct. Instead of continuing with this very simple right-wrong system, I'm always going to encourage students to move to, at a minimum, a 3-tier rating system for their cards. So suddenly we are going to keep the piles for all of the things that were correct and all of the things that were incorrect. But now we have this middle category so that anything that kind of lived in this gray area, it goes there. So we would see concepts marked as correct if we're sort of looking at 90 to 100% accuracy. And our goal for those cards is simply to maintain our accuracy until the exam. For the incorrect pile, we're talking about things that we have really no knowledge of, or we were only able to pull out very vague details around them. And everything else gets to live in our middle pile. Many of my students like to color code these 3 piles, with the incorrect cards being marked as red. Maybe they use an actual red card or a red pen. The ones sitting in the middle are sort of in the yellow zone, and the ones that are test ready are sitting in green. And if they have a long time to study, then we focus on moving their red concepts into yellow, and then the yellow concepts up into green. But let's say we are cramming, we've only got a day left before the exam, and there's still cards in both the red and in the yellow piles, and typically we're going to prioritize studying those yellow cards and moving them up into green, because it's going to take less effort than trying to get those red cards all the way up to green as well. So it can be a great way to know what to study and when to study it. So we now know the good strategies and the better strategies. So what are the best strategies? The best strategies are the ones our students actually use. So at the bottom of our cheat sheet, you'll see a space to personalize and create an action plan based on all that we've covered. Because if we don't take any action, all of this was completely pointless. Be sure to grab your cheat sheet down below, and I'll see you in the next one.